The Lilian Maristella was here. Nice try, but your theory is nothing but hot garbage. What makes you say it's that bad? Girl, you're literally trying to save your case by claiming we had a violent lesbian episode. And what's so bad about that? You have no problem with it? I mean, it's what happened. I can't prove it, but you can't disprove it. Who is going to buy that? How about you try kissing me then? Hold on, what? That's the way to prove it. If you can't even do that much, it's clear you're bluffing. I can't say I'm feeling too hot about that now that I know you were only using me. I'll do what needs to be done if the court deems it necessary, though. Nah, I was just kidding anyway. Not that I wouldn't mind if he wanted to be less. Save your uncouth interactions for a place where I won't be subjected to them. Probably best to move on to more productive statements, as fun as that is. This is a Toho music, isn't it? I could have fetched you the key, but I couldn't have gotten it. Never thought about that, did you? I don't see what would have stopped you from getting the key. Could have been anywhere. You only had to fetch it from wherever. You think you get to pull one over on me? Get ready for some logic. The study was found locked, no? Only the people inside should have had a chance to do that. The witnesses confirmed this. So the key must have been in the room when the door got busted. 100%. That still doesn't mean you couldn't have been the first to find it. You were present at the scene, after all. Maybe you spotted it on the floor and secretly picked it up. Come on, Aurelia. There were like 1,000 people there. You think nobody would have seen that? No way I would have pulled that without you looking suspicious as heck. Things were very chaotic and they must have been distracted by the dead body. It's not out of the question you could have gotten any way with it. So I got lucky as heck and picked up the key without anybody noticing. And then got lucky as heck somehow feeding you the key without you suspecting a thing. Cool plan! I must like to live dangerously. Carpe diem, I guess. Tisk tisk, tisk, and get back to me when you got proof. But while we're talking about me getting crazy lucky... Ah! I'm assuming you are referring to the poison conveniently taking effect at the right time. If it didn't kill the victim, but only made her more aggressive, this doesn't matter. Congrats! You explained away one of the many issues. What about the part where the victim conveniently cut herself? Ain't no way to predict that. How would I even plan any of this? How did I know she'd get this knife? How did I know about the poison? That might have worked with her daughter, but it makes no sense if it's me. Don't obliterate my case too hard now. I know my theory is on life support. There are only two things keeping me in this. Victim's odd symptoms and the fact that killing Mr. Guard is extremely suspicious of its own. Maybe it would be better to focus on getting more info on that for now. Speechless, huh? That's to be expected. You should have never accused me. You were no match for me. You were no match from the start. Someone called Aurelia, you sure aren't very reliable. Boo! What? Yeah, now I'm really speechless. You left him alone in the room. What made you do that? Seems a little risky to split up. I know it sounds like a poor decision in hindsight, but it wasn't like that. Well, can you run us through the events that led up to that? We'd already split from the other two to make it harder for anyone to give us the slip. When we got to the justice room, it didn't look like there was anyone in it. The only suspicious thing in the room was the broken display case. It was already broken before you got there. Interesting. Yeah. I figured someone must have stolen whatever was inside. Anyway, when we were about to leave, the guard wanted to go back and check one final thing. He claimed his guard instincts were tingling. His instincts hadn't been very reliable up to that point, so I thought he'd just be wrong again anyways. And he insisted if I didn't come with him because if there really was someone, it'd be too dangerous. Well, I sort of get the logic. Like everyone else, he was wearing a bulletproof vest. I don't know if we took it seriously enough, though. We were too sure there couldn't be another gun. If you're going to confront a potential gunman, this was still the right call. The vest absorbed almost all the shots. He was very unlucky that one of them hit a bad spot. If you'd been in the room and the culprit took aim at you, you would have very likely died. Miss Chase, I thought you were suggesting Miss Maristella fired the gun. Assuming you're not the culprit yourself, Lilian, which you definitely are. That's right, I forgot. I hate you right now. I guess I still have a hard time accepting it, Your Honor. My friend betraying me like this. Anyway, you say you let him go search the room again. What were you doing during that time, then? It's totally not a ploy. I'm just entering the autonomy room when I heard the gunshots. Why made you go there instead of waiting in the hallway? Do we have a diagram of the bottom floor? It's been a while. Actually, just to refresh our memories... Judges and beneficents, there's a fan lead mannequin. This one doesn't say it, but this is the metal shelf. The gray vertical thing there, that's the metal shelf that we have in the evidence, right? So Lilian's going into autonomy, while Garnt is in justice. Why would you go there instead of waiting in the hallway? That was the only room nobody had checked yet. So... well, you could have waited for the others in the hallway instead of running off. Awfully risky thing to do, don't you think? Sorry, Mom. There's a rule for searches. The less predictable you are, the better. I figured it might throw off the culprit if I rushed to check that room. You know, and just in case they were planning to relocate or anything. I guess there's some kind of logic to that? Like, well, did you find anything inside that room? Nah, but when I stepped through the door, I already heard the shots behind me. I pretty much immediately doubled back the way I came. There's one thing. I felt a cold chill the moment I entered. A chill. So the air in the room was cold. Could be. Maybe I only sensed what was about to happen. Because 1 second later, all hell broke loose with those gunshots. And just to be clear, how many shots did you hear? Kinda happened too fast to count. Just one, the brief pause, and then a few more at once. And you thought it was smart to rush straight toward that. No time for fear. I figured the others would be on their way. I figured the others would be on their way as well. Besides, I got the feeling they were out of bullets. 5. How did you figure that? Even if they emptied the clip, they could have had some to reload. Just a hunch, I guess. Sus. I know your intuition tends to be pretty good, but can you maybe not stake your life on it? And in a way that makes you look very suspicious. Shoot style. Legit. That's a very suspicious statement, saying it like that. And you're saying that's all you did? Unless this is part of your ploy to draw this forward somehow. That's a very suspicious way of putting that, Lilian. Got proof I did anything else? Didn't think so. Perhaps the fact that only 2 other people on that floor give each other an alibi? Alibi schmalibi. There was totally somebody else there. Except there couldn't have been, given what we know. Process of elimination sucks. You want to pin this on me? Give me some real proof. There was nobody else in the room. Didn't look like it. I guess you will say the culprit somehow managed to leave the room. You think anyone could have slipped out of the crime scene while you were there? I like that you're keeping the classics in mind, but nah. There weren't any doors to hide behind. My focus was obviously on the body, but I would have seen anyone walking out. So if anyone left, it would have to have happened before you got there. It's totally possible if they bailed right after the shots. I don't think anybody had their eyes on the door that fast. I don't know about that. It sounds tricky to evade all detection in the hallway. That's not even getting into everyone having a solid alibi. I'll take that at face value for now. Anything of note you saw in the room? Mr. Guard was on the floor. He looked just like in the photo that got taken. I don't think anything else in the room changed, though. The display case looked a little more busted than before, maybe? And that gun we found had been dropped on the floor, of course. I know what people say when you're stupid enough to pick up a gun at a crime scene, so I didn't. That's commendable, at least. Not that the lack of fingerprints helps your case much. Oh yeah? You got some gloves to present? Because I sure didn't have any with me. It's not that hard to avoid fingerprints. You could have used the sleeves of your shirt. It would still make me smarter than you were when you used your own gun with your bare hands. But do we not have a crime contest in court? So, you were wise enough not to touch anything until the others showed up. And you detail their arrival and the aftermath. This is very... Like the judge would have... The judge would have every right. The judge would have every right to step in and say, "Are you sure you are suspecting her of some shit?" I was pretty shocked, so I'm not sure how long it took. Mr. Kova showed up first. He yelled something behind me, I think. Dr. Hellinger got there a little later. He investigated the room and questioned me. Didn't really seem to buy my story, though. I take it her investigation didn't turn up anything beyond what's in the court record. Well, she sure didn't find anyone hiding or something like that. It's almost as airtight as it gets, then. It's good for me. It's good for me, which is bad for you, which is actually bad for me. And... I'll have to show I'm not just wasting time here soon. We managed to get you to testify? Yeah, now all you have to do is make it worth it. Well, give me a moment here. Your account is news to me as well. There was a good chance to tell you earlier. What I can say is that I won't lie on the stand. This is really what happened. Mr. Card didn't deserve this. I shouldn't have left him alone. There is no way the culprit could have predicted your movements. Unlike the first crime, it's very likely this one wasn't planned out that well. We should have much better chances to pin down the culprit here. It won't be in vain. You think so? I have no idea how anyone could have pulled this one off. Maybe with some kind of string trick to fire the gun remotely? We can come back to that after we sort out the blatant issues with your testimony. Issues? I didn't say anything wrong. Then you should be able to explain them when I point them out. Alright, try me. I'd make her look bad initially if I point out contradictions. Not that it could really be looking any worse for her in regards to this murder. Must be a clue hidden in those discrepancies that'll help me figure out the bigger picture. Watch the circular hallway can rotate. Now the question... This still presents me with a question of which of the evidence pieces goes where. I saved, so I'm going to try. False. Become enlightened, you must first acknowledge that your actions have consequences. As such, Aurelia must be punished for these asinine claims. These make sense. This will be enlighten you, yay. That really made more sense than the point I tried to make. Oh, shush. Gotta be more specific about why those movements wouldn't have been possible. Thank you. Hey, ooh. Oh, hey. So this is the place. Let's present the shelf. False. Objection to the statement. What gave you that idea, defendant? My sources are confidential. I'm afraid they are painfully evident. Such an abominable argument could only be conceived by a mind of your level. Well, I won't make such presumptions. But no matter where this misinformation came from, you presented it to this court. Back to the drawing board it is, alright. I'll get up here. Oh, did I go with the wrong statement? False. Maybe B should be more specific. Or is the affidavit? Does the affidavit say more? Hellinger and Kova stayed together. Gunshot 4 after a brief pause. Maybe affidavit here? Alright. Time to come up with better lies, Lilian. This one won't fly. You think you get to spot lies the way I do? That's rich, girl. I don't need to spot anything. Because I've got it documented in black and white that you're talking nonsense. That witness statement isn't going to bail you out. I mean, please. I know what they said. That can all be true, but it's still only circumstantial. I'm not talking about how the obvious conclusion from this is that you totally did it. Where'd you say you were again when you heard the gunshots? The autonomy room? That's just straight up impossible. Eh? What are you talking about? I totally went there. Nope, not possible. The devil is in the details of this affidavit. It says right here that Dr. Hellinger and Mr. Kova left the door open while investigating their room. You truly did as you said, went to the autonomy room. They should have seen you pass by. But this account doesn't mention anything of the sort. There was no way for you to go to that room unnoticed. But Miss Chase, why would she lie about something like that? Obviously, she tried to distance herself from the crime scene. Her story would be even worse if the best she could say was that she was right outside the room. Because it sure strains belief that she wouldn't have seen the killer at all then. It's cute when you try so hard to sell your point. If you actually think this is a gotcha, you're just silly. Care to explain? You should have spent more time looking at the other evidence. Use your eyes. It's a circular hallway. There are always two paths from one door to another. You assumed I walked clockwise to reach the autonomy room, but I actually walked counterclockwise. I know you're desperate to pin this on me, but try not to put words into my mouth. You went counterclockwise from justice to autonomy. But that's speechless, huh? It'd be pretty embarrassing to miss something that obvious. I'll clarify it for you in my testimony. I hope that helps. You're positive about that? Well, duh. If you've got a problem with that, why don't you come out and say it? There's a pretty obvious problem here, I would say. Wonder what it could mean, though. Lilian's claims more and more seem like they have to be lies. Well, she did willingly sign up for this. I'll just have to point it out and make sense of it later. Alright, moving right along. Do we go tower diagram first? Alright, be specific about the roadblock. And that's the shelf. Did you seriously think an excuse like that would work? Couldn't have taken the direct path between autonomy and justice, because an immovable shelf is obstructing it. Man, you used to be smart, sis. What happened? Didn't think you'd walk right into that one. What? Should I be glad she has an actual explanation for this? I must be offended if you thought I missed such an obvious issue. Here's a clue. What makes a shelf different from a solid wall? Wait, you slipped through the gaps. No, that doesn't work. You're not thin enough for that. Oh, so you're saying I'm thick? Dummy thick. Careful, Miss has literally eaten nothing but cake today, and a key. To be fair, that's not quite right. You already got your daily key nutrient. Can this be the new keys, everyone? Can this be the new keys, everyone, please? Can we not? Alright, I'll tell you. I climbed over it. You climbed over the shelf. Is that even possible? Didn't reach all the way to the ceiling. There's enough space above it, so it can basically be used like a ladder. I mean, sure, but why did you do that when there's a perfectly unobstructed path to the walk on? Sometimes you gotta be unpredictable if you want results. Throw your enemies off like a game. You should know what I mean if you think about how you've kept this trial going. I had a feeling I might learn something interesting if I didn't take the expected route. That still doesn't make much sense to me. Seems like it's working as intended then. No, I'm saying there's literally still a major... Wow, I guess Victoria really was right. You're a little slow on the uptake today. I'll adjust my testimony so even scrubs like you get it. Is it just me, or is she enjoying this a little too much? Alright. How in the world did you do that? Give the program, Aurelia. How is this so difficult for you to grasp? A shelf is just like a ladder. You ever climbed a ladder? I hope so. You step on each board and push yourself up. It's a little harder to grab onto it, so you need to keep yourself balanced well. I guess if I have an issue with that, I should point out directly. Alright. Let's sort this out, Lilian. So she knows about the shelf, but claims she's climbed over it. Why? Oh, oops. He just updated that statement. I was expecting another one. Alright. The shelf is full of dust. Alright. Alright, it's time we drop the excuses and talk shop. You did not climb over this, and the shelf itself proves it. Come on, I told you there was enough free space above it. Well, I'm sure it's theoretically possible to climb, but that didn't happen. Take note of the little face impression in the dust. What does that have to do with the matter at hand? Absolutely nothing, Your Honor. It's not about what this face means, but what it implies about the rest of the shelf. The face was the only thing of note. That means aside from this, the dust hasn't been disturbed. If Lilian really climbed over the shelf, her footprints should have been in the dust. Wow. Ah! Can't explain that one anyway, can you? I totally climbed that shelf. What the heck? I'm afraid feigning ignorance isn't going to help you now. You made one too many excuses and now it caught up to you. What is going on here? Are we supposed to congratulate? Oh, this certainly isn't looking good, Miss Maristella. Seems there is no way you could have gone to the autonomy room as you claim. Stop the process for a moment. I guess I must have gone the other way then. You can't just casually change your testimony like that. What the heck? If the witnesses were totally allowed to do it. A well of creativity, you see. My imagination is vibrant. That's hard to dispute, all right? I totally had a thought like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I climbed over this shelf for no reason? I must be misremembering what I actually ended up doing then. Sorry, Chief. She's trying to patch this up very quickly. That is the third worst excuse I've ever heard a witness make. We'll take it as you being unsure which path you took. It doesn't really make a difference now, does it? I've already ruled out both paths. Even if you backtrack and say you went past beneficence, that just brings us back to this. What does an open door really prove? Not like the affidavit says they didn't see me pass by, no. Maybe you didn't think it was important enough to write down. Ever thought about that? Good call. I see what you're trying to do there. That should be simple enough to confirm or deny that. I demand those two to be called as witnesses to testify. Uh-oh, now she wants to fight. No, she's still napping. Did you mean to object, Miss Kristen? Is she actually still awake or just talking in her sleep? I suppose I understand the sentiment she most likely meant to convey. No doubt she would accuse you of trying to force more testimony to delay the proceedings. Hope you're only relaying the message and not thinking that yourself. Neither Mr. Kovar or Dr. Hellinger have given any testimony, despite being substantially involved. I believe that is enough to warrant hearing them out on this matter. Plus, Mr. Kovar may know more about the secret poison, and Dr. Hellinger is a forensic expert. It's pivotal to hear them out, to establish a connection between this case and ours. You want to save time, we can hear from both of them at once. You certainly make good points. Miss Kristen, do you object? I'll take that as a no. I will take that as tacit approval. Seems our poor little princess isn't used to working late hours. Now isn't that a shame? Alright, I'm vibing with this. The court agrees then. Calling those two witnesses is the fastest way to determine the merit of these claims. Please step up to the stand. Are these our final witnesses? Are these our final witnesses? Please ask the witnesses to introduce themselves, third-party plaintiff. Are you tacitly prosecuting now? Lilian, are you tacitly prosecuting? If so, that's awesome. It's my turn to do this, huh? We're quite familiar with both of you already. Oh, it's Aurelia. Still, that's right, Aurelia's third-party plaintiff versus Lilian. Please state your name and profession for the record. Dr. Sellers Hellinger, professional detective working for Alethea. I'm in charge of this investigation, as you all well know by now. The defendant is correct about one point. My testimony is the objectively fastest way to a conclusion. You certainly have been working hard so far. I gather it is my turn. My name is Ander Kova. I am your average local sweets merchant. You're still going to keep that up? We already know that's not your true identity. All of you must be very tired of these proceedings. Would you care for some refreshments, Your Honor? Oh, well, I suppose I wouldn't mind a cookie or two. What about you, Miss Preston? That extraordinary mind of yours is surely in dire need of sugar. She's out. That may be the first palatable proposition I've heard in this trial. Can we not get distracted from the issue here? Well, you might have a point. I could use a snack. No, not for you, Miss Chase. I haven't forgotten what you did. Your slanderous mouth has lost its right to my food. He's done a full 180. I shouldn't be surprised, I guess. Well, by now I'm kind of used to all the witnesses being mad at me. Trying to get any information about the poison out of Mr. Kova is an objective waste of time. Spare yourself the effort. Our testimonies can establish the key data points regardless. It's clear that Lilian Maristella is Louis Garn's murderer. However, I do not believe she killed Melanie Holden. Poison hypothesis is still merely an incorrect assumption. I suppose we cannot press a man about something that hasn't yet been proven to exist. Please testify about the events that transpired on the lower floor. And their possible relation to our case. Alright, what do we got? Some elimination. When we arrived on the floor, we split into two groups. The two of us went into beneficence. I began my investigation of the room while Mr. Koba manually surveilled it. Within my sight. We left the entrance open and would have noticed anyone pass by the room. Nobody did. Around 15 minutes later, the live gunshots rang out. There was no question they came from the justice room. We hurried over without delay. On my way there, I caught a brief glimpse of Miss Maristella moving deeper into the room. Upon arrival, we found Miss Maristella standing over the dead body of Mr. Gaunt. I immediately began my investigation. The room contained no hidden exits nor people. She didn't find any poison. It doesn't exist. Even if it did, how could Miss Maristella have known it? It is worth noting that no reliable means to remove such a substance were found. After that, we searched the rest of the floor clockwise, but found no additional persons nor passages. None of us possessed the means to fire a gun remotely. That leaves Miss Maristella as the only suspect. There's also a random kid running around. But surely we're not accusing her of murder. What was her name? Mariko. She is 18. Jesus. That was certainly thorough. It lines up with what was already written in this affidavit. Did you assume otherwise? I made sure to note all the key facts. There's no point to say any more. Nobody disputes Lilian Maristella's guilt, and her being involved in the other murder is objectively implausible. Too bad. An affidavit can only cover so much. Now that you testified, we will have to see what details may come to light in the cross-examination. I know I cannot stop you, and do your worst. These are your witnesses, Miss Chase. You cannot cross-examine them. Wait, is that how it works? Still a way to ask them questions, I hope. Of course. You may perform what is called a direct examination. Right, I'll do that then. Finally got them. Well done. Getting these two to testify should hopefully give us some options. Yeah, they got to know something. This makes no sense, though. I really climbed over the shelf. There's something fishy going on with that. That contradiction must hold significance, but I think there's something else we need to focus on right now. There has to be an issue with this testimony if you're not the culprit. And if we think about this logically, that means one of them has to be the culprit instead. Really? Neither of them gave me culprit vibes when I talked to them earlier. Could it be someone else? It becomes fairly apparent if we take the circumstances for what they are. Let's assume some other person shot him. Where would they have gone? Dr. Hellinger seems competent enough not to miss a secret passage in the room. Must have slipped out through the door then. Sure, that's possible. The issue comes after that. Nobody could have passed by beneficence while those two were in there. And you say you approached the room from the side with a shelf. No matter which way this supposed culprit ran, they should have bumped into either of you or them. Alright, make a fair point. And that's not even going into how nobody else should have been able to be on the floor in the first place. So it's a phantom killer that vanished into thin air, huh? I'll go with the option that there has to be a hole in the alibi of these two. Somehow. Yeah, that might be an even bigger issue than me magically leaving no prints in the dust. For now, that mystery will have to be shelved. You sure seem in high spirits for someone who might get booked for murder with this. As I know you'll definitely bail me out. Or be booked for murder too. You wouldn't let my sacrifice go to waste. No pressure, of course. Wonderful. Direct examination. Direct examination. Yes. All right. This is going to be interesting. All right, let's just start pressing. Any particular reason you split into these particular groups? Apparently Miss Maristella and Mr. Guard had collaborated previously. I had a particular preference, except that I did not want to be paired with Miss Maristella. Personally, I felt it made sense to have someone capable of self-defense in each duo. I suppose an FBI agent would be trained in that as well, isn't that right? You'll need to do better than that to earn yourself a cookie, Miss Chase. Regardless of my own abilities, Dr. Hellinger is more capable of looking after herself. Really? Doesn't look that physically robust. Release the drone! I guess being a detective might mean she has some tricks up her sleeve. And you're sure that the other two went to the justice room? Did you see that? We certainly didn't wait around until they entered the room. That was simply the direction they headed in. I had my own room to get started with, after all. Interesting way to put it. You make it sound like your approach was different from his. You've sufficiently observed my method to know that a distinction is warranted. Oh, right. You had your gadgets with you, huh? They're called hunt devices. Of course I took them with me. There's no point in investigating without my equipment. How'd they help you exactly? I employed methods of ultrasonic testing and thermography to assess the room for defects. A good hiding spot may evade the human eye, but it cannot deceive modern forensic technology. I can see that being thorough, I suppose. Mr. Covert, what did you do while she was busy with that? I wandered and looked at some things. That seems remarkably aimless in comparison. We didn't really know what to look for. This Reaper's ghost could have been anywhere. I figure he might have tried to use the chance to look for more dangerous government weapons. Well, these approaches seem very different. One of you was stationary while the other wandered around. That room is pretty spacious. Can you really say you kept track of each other at all times while in there? Correct. You would be incorrect to assume it was impossible because of the room's size. Rooms are fairly empty. The tallest objects in there are a few shelves and the small pillars. Nothing that could significantly obstruct your view. To be precise, one could have likely hidden if they really tried, but the other would have immediately noticed their absence. It certainly would not have been possible to leave the room unnoticed. Remember, I'm wondering... I mean, I suppose they could have heard footsteps, but... Lilian suggested she could have slipped past you. What are your thoughts on that? Impossible beyond reasonable doubt. You were investigating the room at the same time, no? Even if you left the door open, could you really have constantly kept the hallway in your view? Oh, they're gonna address it. I don't assert such claims lightly, unlike you journalists. It was my first order of business to set up a motion sensor facing the door. Oh! Even if I wasn't directly looking at the hallway, I would have been alerted if anyone passed by. That's pretty thorough. But I guess it makes sense you were wary of that. The worst problem in a search is your target being able to change position. With this, I think we can agree that this option has been adequately eliminated. Us humans may get distracted and blink. Machines do not. Well, machines can malfunction, but she probably has some way to tell us that happened as well. Definitely sounds reliable enough. Miss Barstella must have almost certainly lied about going to the autonomy room then. Absolutely, it's good you were able to establish that, witness. Let's talk about what happened next. 5 gunshots? And you are sure of this? It must have been very sudden. Yes. Can you confirm this, Dr. Hellinger? I am not prepared to make such a definite statement. It was one shot followed by several others. The bullets we found are consistent with the assumption that 5 shots were fired. I would be wary to conclude it merely from what I heard. Interesting. Seems like you're the only one strangely confident about this, Mr. Kova. Perhaps you've heard some gunshots before as part of, I don't know, some training exercise. Ah, no. It's actually because I'm the real culprit and know how often I shot. You are still on the stand, witness. Please answer seriously. No, let him cook. Apologies, Your Honor. The random guesses must be wearing my nerves. I can count. Believe it or not, Miss Chase. Even holding this tray, I still have one free hand to count all the way up to 5. Amazing, I know. Okay, be that way. Fine. Are you positive with what you heard were gunshots? Yes. There's no chance it was anything else. No chance. Dr. Hellinger? It cannot be entirely ruled out that it was something really imitating the sound of gunshots. A series of explosions to a very loud TV speaker playing several gunshots off fathomable. Thank you for being so precise. We discovered no evidence suggesting such things, of course. What do you say to that, Mr. Kilver? Surely there's some small room for doubt, at least. Nope, those were gunshots. There's no question. There are two kinds of people in this court, and they're both on the stand right now. The justice room. Can you be more specific about how fast your response was? A few seconds? We left the room pretty much immediately after realizing what we've heard. Is there a chance you managed to get past... Is there a chance anyone managed to get past you in the hallway? With all undue respect, we're not blind. But it was my impression that the hallway featured some pretty bizarre patterns on the walls. There also happened to be that life-size mannequin. Perhaps there was some way to hide behind it while he went past. Terrible idea. No cookies for you. Yeah, there isn't enough space to hide behind that statue. No way to miss anyone if you walk right past it. I believe Dr. Hellinger performed a check on it later. Correct. It seems suspicious enough to investigate it in the aftermath. While there are some peculiarities about it, there are no hiding spaces inside it that would fit a human. There goes that idea. Was the door to justice open or closed when you approached it? It was wide open. Why would it be open? I can only speculate about that. But if I were to serve my opinion, Miss Maristella wanted to make it seem like she just arrived. It was clearly the impression she wanted to give when we ran into her, after all. On my way there, I caught a brief glimpse of Miss Maristella moving deeper into the room. Are you sure it was her? I admit that I only briefly saw her back. Still, her clothes are very recognizable and the hair matches hers. Anything else? How about you, Dr. Hellinger? I can't say I witnessed this. Mr. Cover was ahead of me. It just strikes me as a little odd. If Lilian shot him, she should have already been inside the room. What you saw suggests she got there mere moments before you. Maybe, maybe not. She could have peeked out of the room, seen us, and decided there was no point trying to sneak out. Or she intentionally waited at the door to give the false impression that she just arrived there to us. You called her a mystery maniac, did you not? These attempts at deception would be consistent with such a profile. Doubt that's the words I used, but fair enough. Oh, a profile, like that stuff that the FBI does to high-profile criminals and such, Mr. Cova, eh? No cookies. There's no good reason to have doubts about what I saw, who I saw. It's obvious if you look at what happened next. What was everyone's position in the room? Describe the scene for me. The body was lying in front of the display case, which was more or less located in the room's center. Miss Maristella stood right in front of it and was presumably looking down. You technically could not tell because she had her back to you. I guess not. Because she was focused on the body and facing away from the door. That is what it looked like. Your point. Just assessing the situation. Where was the gun, by the way? On the floor. Behind or in front of Lilian? If I recall correctly, it was lying between her and the door, a little off to the side. This leaves room for evidence tampering behind Lilian's back. Not quite sure what to do with that. What would you do next? I imagine you confronted her. I'm not the investigation expert, so I waited for Dr. Hellinger to take the lead. Let me explain from here. Please walk us through your steps in the investigation. First, we briefly queried Miss Maristella about what happened. Her testimony clearly necessitated a search of the room for any hidden factors. Thankfully, I'm equipped to reliably check every nook and cranny for cracks and openings. I was able to set up and investigate the room without any notable incidents. What did the others do during that time? They stood near the wall and watched. None of us left the room from the time we found the body until I was finished. It's fairly safe to say neither could have moved or touched anything while I was busy. And what were your findings? Anything of note in the room? There really wasn't much of note, like I said. We have the display case in the middle and the nearby pillar. There are some empty boxes and shelves like in the other rooms. Spacious, but fairly empty. There's no question whatever used to be there was moved out a considerable time ago. All the walls featured a repeating mouth pattern, except for the curved outer wall, which consisted of windows identical to those on the floor on this floor. The pattern was objectively distracting. It could not have concealed any hidden door or person from me. Guess it's fair to have faith in that technology. What else did you do? After I was satisfied that nobody else was there, I investigated the body and nearby evidence. My findings are already in the court record, thanks to Miss Princeton. Did you confront Lilian with your findings? It was objectively preferable not to share the results of my investigation at that time. It's rarely productive to inform a suspect too soon if they are under suspicion. Indeed, she did not even let us look at her screens while she went over the evidence. Well, a layman like me could not have made much of it anyway. There's one thing I can say for certain, though. Doesn't even... That's quite a jump forward from what we were talking about. That is the reason you wanted to call us to the stand, no? The good thing about snacks is that you don't have to wait for mealtime. We should just focus on the important point. Which is that you are trying to avoid the blame for your crimes. Well, on what grounds do you assert this? You shouldn't be an authority on secret government substances. If you're really just a local food merchant, that is. Keep trying to play at that. It makes no difference. Even if I was a government agent, it's not like I can produce a narrative. The one making the claim should serve up some evidence. That's asking a bit much given what I have to work with. Our findings of the Thinker suggest that some military-grade items made it into the building. Let's assume that. The real point is still that this has precious little to do with Miss Maristella. Case could be made that those occupying this place got their hands on it. Your young friend doesn't even live in this state. Okay, I haven't worked out every detail just yet. But there has to be a reason she killed Mr. Garn. I can think of a reason that was mentioned earlier. We'll see how long your mind games can cast doubt on it. The fact remains that no traces of this poison were found in this room. Interesting thing to note, but you could have just wiped it off with her sleeves or something, but that seems horribly irresponsible. Get an extremely lethal poison on her clothes. Well, if it's only deadly if it enters the bloodstream, there isn't an immediate concern. Acknowledged. However, that is still a very doubtful hypothesis. My investigation was very thorough. She would have needed to remove every last bit of the substance. Something that could not be accomplished by hasty measures, such as wiping it with her sleeves. But at the bare minimum, needs some water to reliably clean it up. Ideally some detergent. That's where this comes in. She was not in possession of that at this time. Isn't the truth that she left it with you before heading downstairs? She had no subsequent chance to hand it back to you afterwards. Intentionally or not, the data you present is incorrect. Overplayed my hand there. Regardless, any cleaning measure should have also gotten rid of all the other traces on this case, such as Mrs. Holden's blood. You were not going to say that she cleaned the case and then somehow replaced that, no? Not impossible in theory, it clearly exceeds the means she had at her disposal at this time. There also would have been no reason for her to do something like that. Well, yes, but maybe this poison has some unique property which allowed for it to be cleaned off easily. It's certainly very convenient to posit a theoretical substance with unknown properties. Hope you realize that you will have to prove that if you want to move forward. I'm looking forward to the peer review. That might be difficult because it's almost definitely wrong. Just gotta have it hold out until I find something else. Alright, there's a lot here. And you're certain nobody could have evaded your search. You'll have to elaborate to convince me. It certainly wasn't a trivial task. After completing justice, I decided we should proceed by investigating the floor clockwise. It would be objectively annoying if someone slipped into a room we already searched. For that reason, undercover remained behind in the hallway. remained put, where he could observe the doors to justice and autonomy. Made my way through the hallway back to Beneficence, keeping Miss Maristella with me. I had to start my investigation of the room from scratch to rule out anyone hiding in it. The door was left open like last time to keep eyes on the hallway. I told Miss Maristella to stay at the entrance to the room so she and Mr. Kova could watch each other. This minimized the possibility if any of us could be ambushed, unseen. This same procedure was then repeated for autonomy. Finished by investigating the shelf. Those findings are in the court record. I concluded the investigation. I told Mr. Kova to meet at the elevator. We did leave Mr. Kova by the shelf, by himself. You will have to agree that this left no conceivable hiding place, nor any chance for any extra person to evade us. You split up again? Was that really so smart? It couldn't be helped if you wanted to decisively rule out any extra person. What about the motion sensor you mentioned earlier? Couldn't you have just set that up to make sure nobody slipped past or into justice? That option is not reliable enough under these circumstances. Due to the interference signals in this tower, it cannot inform me remotely. A potential hidden person would have had the option to remove the sensor or tamper with it. You wanted to leave as little room for doubt as possible, fair enough. And why did you decide to leave Mr. Kova behind as opposed to Lilian? It should be evident that Lilian Maristella can't be trusted. Keeping her under observation by two people minimized this risk. Weren't you worried she might try something while alone with you? In my assessment, the probability for winning an altercation against me was negligible. I'm not sure that confidence is warranted. She packs quite a punch. Mr. Kova, I take it you didn't see or do anything notable while alone in the hallway. Of course not. If I had, I would have offered it up already. I had already investigated everything in justice. If you hypothesize he tampered with anything, it would have been too late to affect my findings. Given I told Miss Maristella to keep observing him from the entrance, his chances to do so were negligible as well. Fair enough, I guess. Did you find anything else of note while investigating the other rooms? I suppose I'll have to provide this data point against my better judgment. There were no secret passages, but there was technically one more opening in each of these rooms. Oh? What would those be? This will sound familiar to you. Ventilation shafts. Each of the rooms featured one, however, too small for a grown human to use, I take it. Correct. Dimensions match those we encountered on this floor. Oh no. Mariko hours. Did any of them show traces that the cover was recently removed? The vent in autonomy had a damaged cover. Could not determine if that happened recently. Autonomy. That room is directly underneath the original crime scene, right? Room Mr. Poli claimed he saw Dr. Lead in. That would appear to be the case, yes. And were there, like, any other traces that someone's been in there? Anything on the ceiling? I think I wouldn't have checked that. No, there was nothing else that stood out in the room. Was the room unusually chilly compared to the others? I'm not sure what you are getting at. There was no appreciable difference in temperature. I see. Thanks. That vent cover seems possibly worth keeping in mind, at least. Alright, we're getting close. How so? Nobody else could have gotten to that locked floor. Nobody could have escaped from the crime scene without being detected. Nobody else could have still been on that floor after the crime. Nor was there any way to leave. What else is needed? No matter how you calculate it, she's the only remaining suspect. If we grant all that, sure. The only alternative would be some remote way to fire the gun. Doesn't sound like you can fathom anything about that. The gun was found lying on the floor. There wasn't any nearby furniture that could have been used to prop it up. Any notions of a literal remote-controlled gun can be safely rejected. Tao's EM interference reaches that floor as well. Nor were there any traces of a purely mechanical contraption present. There certainly could not have been a chance for any of us to remove something like that either. Except for Miss Maristella, when she was alone in that room. However, she had no need for such a thing. True. Guess firing the gun multiple times would require something more elaborate than, say, some string. Especially given how accurately it seemed to have hit Mr. Garn. That's a fair assessment. At least there are some points we can agree on. Lilian said that she and Mr. Garth searched the room together first before she left. If there had been any obvious gun traps set up in the open, it seems too convenient she'd miss it, just for Mr. Garth to trigger it while alone. There'd be another way to manipulate a gun without being present. Tuning forks! It's worth repeating that this testimony can't go unchallenged. So if you've got any ideas who to suspect, now would be the time. To be fair, one of them feels kind of weird to me right now. Really? Who is it? No, I don't want to bias you. Kova. Kova's definitely acting off. They seemed fine when I talked to them earlier. Not sure if I've got confidence in my hunch yet. Huh. It's rare for you to be unsure about these things. What happened with Mr. Garth affect her competence? I can tell what you're thinking, but it's not that. This one's just weird. Get back to you once I'm more sure there's something off here. Don't necessarily have the time for that. Hey, it's just your typical alibi problem. There's basically only two approaches. Either show the alibi as a weakness, but having one doesn't matter in the first place. Those sound like pretty good approaches. I'll try and focus on doing something with that. Show a weakness. And that, I'd have to prove that the sequence of events couldn't have been as tidy as they claim. And to argue that alibi doesn't matter in the first place, that likely involves raising another possibility for how the murder was carried out. Either way, we probably won't be able to keep up this third-party pretense for much longer. It's time to go on the offense against these two. Alright. It's thinking time now. Put your thoughts and answers in the comments section. And we'll see the result next video.